Welcome to Yap and Doodle. Today we'll be discussing intelligence. Are you smart? How are you smart? For most of the 20th century, our culture has mostly focused on the first question. For a long time, people were categorized and even treated according to their intelligence scores. These scores have been used in schools, workplaces, and fields such as the military. But in 1983, a psychologist by the name of Howard Gardner changed the question. In doing so, he changed our approach to intelligence. In his book, Frames of Mind, Gardner proposed the theory of multiple intelligences, in which he argued that intelligence is not a single, general ability measured by IQ test, but rather a combination of different types of intelligences that people possess in varying degrees. This study falls within the area of cognitive psychology, specifically the study of intelligence and how the brain processes information. It also connects strongly to educational psychology and neuroscience. The response to such a proposal was largely positive, as many people related to the idea that their intelligence had been overlooked because of the narrow lens through which it was previously viewed. By changing the question, Gardner changed the approach and effectively validated those who fell outside of the traditional IQ framework. Gardner had previous knowledge of neuroscience. He formed the theory of multiple intelligences based on his prior experience studying the human brain. Gardner believed that since the brain is made up of multiple specialized regions, each individual region is responsible for different functions. It was reasonable to conclude that people have unique strengths related to these different brain areas. Gardner designed 8 criteria for something to qualify as an intelligence. The category had to have the potential to be isolated in the case of brain damage. It should have prodigies, specializing in that skill. It should have core mental operations, and it should have a developmental pattern, an evolutionary history, the ability to be measured, and it should be represented by a symbol system. After careful deliberation, Gardner identified 8 different kinds of intelligences. These include linguistic intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence, musical intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, spatial intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, and naturalistic intelligence. It is important to note that this was not one single experiment. Gardner built his theory by reviewing many different types of research. He studied prodigies, individuals with brain damage, children at different developmental stages, and people from different cultures. By examining patterns across these groups, he concluded that intelligence is modular rather than one general ability. Gardner even considered how intelligence is perceived through the various cultures. This contributed to the understanding that intelligence has many faces and expressions. Intelligence is identified and valued differently depending on cultural priorities. The further supports the idea that intelligence has multiple facets. Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences changed how we approach and perceive the concept of intelligence in cognitive psychology. It even influenced language. Where we once used the term learning disabilities, we've moved towards learning differences. This is a social impact that shows progress in omitting the idea that struggling in one area defines a person's overall ability. Unfortunately, despite all of the evidence and positive impact, not everyone agrees with the theory. Critics argue that it is too difficult to apply within stricter frameworks such as standardized testing. Some suggest that the intelligences may simply be different talents or thinking styles rather than completely separate intelligences. Others argue that more rigorous scientific testing is needed to fully validate the theory. I believe this study has value not only to me but to everyone in the class. It encourages self-awareness and helps us recognize strengths in ourselves and others that may not show up on traditional tests. It also promotes empathy by reminding us that intelligence is diverse. In the real world, this theory has strong applications in education. Many schools now incorporate different teaching styles based on the understanding that students learn differently. It is also used in workplace training, leadership development, and career counseling. Modern neuroscience continues to support the idea of brain specialization, showing that different neural networks are responsible for different types of processing. Additionally, current discussions about neurodiversity reflect Gardner's perspective by recognizing cognition differences as natural variations rather than deficits. Frames of mind fundamentally change how intelligence is understood. Rather than reducing people to a single number, Gardner encouraged us to see intelligence as diverse, specialized, and multifaceted. So does intelligence come in many packages? I would certainly say so. Let me know what you think. Thanks for joining on Yap and Doodle.